And a CNN exclusive, a source familiar with the House Ethics Committee investigation into allegations of sex crimes against Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz suggests that probe may now be heating up. You may recall there was a Justice Department investigation that ended with no charges against Gaetz. Plus, after the ouster of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, McCarthy said Gaetz was angry with him because of the Ethics Committee probe. Joined now by CNN legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Jennifer Rogers and by our chief legal affairs correspondent Paula Reed, who helped break this story. So what more have you learned about what the Ethics Committee is doing?
So I've learned that the Ethics Committee has done a new round of outreach, and they have reached out to this woman who was still 17 when she allegedly had sex with Congressman Gaetz. They've also reached out to the Justice Department, seeking materials from its years-long investigation into the congressman. Now, the investigation into the congressman actually began under Trump-appointed Attorney General Bill Barr. It went on for several years, expanding beyond the allegations of just sex with this underage girl to also look at possible sex trafficking, possible lobbying violations, as well as obstruction of justice. But last year, we broke the news that he would not be charged. They did not pursue charges. And in response to the fact that the Ethics Committee is looking into what DOJ did, as well as reaching out to this woman, the congressman told us, quote, "Those allegations were not true, have not been true, and the people who spread those lies have been exposed, indicted, and imprisoned."
And Jennifer, does the DOJ have to comply with the committee's request for documents?
They do not, and they probably will not because nothing was ever charged here. So materials that are gathered as part of a criminal investigation are deemed confidential. So I'd be surprised if they give them really anything worthwhile. They can do their own investigation. They can go out and interview witnesses, as apparently they're trying to do, collect documents via subpoena and all of that, but they won't get what DOJ has.
They wouldn't turn over, even though it's Congress asking that, a committee in Congress asking?
Likely not. I mean, if they had charged something and these materials had become public, but they're very careful with materials that don't make their way into the public realm, because if you don't charge, then it's deemed that it wasn't worthy of charging, so you don't want to smear people's names by turning over evidence.
So the committee now, it's controlled by Republicans. It started under the House Democrats, though, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It started in 2021. But then when the Justice Department investigation became public, they decided to yield to the federal probe. But then when the federal investigation wrapped up last year without any charges, this was revived. And Gaetz has told people privately he blamed then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy for allowing the ethics probe to be resuscitated. And McCarthy has said publicly that he thinks Gaetz's frustration over this ethics probe is why he led the push, right, to get McCarthy out of the speakership. But you see, even in a post-Speaker McCarthy world, this investigation not only continues, but it appears to be ramping up.
I want to ask you about the E. Jean Carroll civil defamation trial in New York. The former president's going to be back, or expected to be back in court tomorrow. Is he going to actually testify?
That's a great question. So my sources tell me that he is still expected to testify. But Anderson, we've seen this before, right? Where they get right up to the last minute and then for one reason or another, he decides not to. But what we've seen so far in this case is he and his legal team, they've been trying to use it to amplify this idea that he's the victim of an unfair system. And the way they've done that here is sort of manufacture drama over not following the rules of federal court. I mean, here, if he does testify, there are parameters that he has to stay within. His value as a witness in a damages case, pretty narrow here. But it's not expected he would stay within these parameters. The judge would have to try to keep him right in line. That's going to set off controversy, and that is the goal. They want to get into it with the judge.
Jennifer, is there any reason why he wouldn't get up and start to say things which he, deny he ever did this, which the judge has already said he can't say, just to get into that? Is there any penalty for him?
There could be, sure. The judge could sanction him. The judge could basically stop his testimony, presumably embarrassing him in front of the jury. He could do a whole series of things.
That wouldn't really embarrass him in the jury he cares about, which is the public opinion.
That's right. But if he behaves badly, especially if he's abusive to the judge in front of the jury, juries don't like that. They really like the judge. They kind of follow the judge's instructions. That's the person who takes care of them. So when you're mean to the judge, juries don't like that. You could end up with a higher damages amount, particularly punitive damages, which are meant to punish if he behaves that way.
What's the schedule here? How much longer, Paula, do you think this goes on for?
So I would expect maybe about 2 days. And the reason I say that is E. Jean Carroll, they have to wrap up their case. Trump, if he testifies, would be one of maybe 2 witnesses. Then you have closing statements, you have jury instructions, and then deliberations. If you remember the trial back in the spring, that was far more complicated because they were also considering allegations of sexual abuse, defamation, and damages.
It's just about damages.
Exactly. This is just about damages. Back in the spring, it only took them a few hours. I remember sprinting several blocks to get there to the camera for that verdict. So here, it shouldn't take them that long because this time they're just focused on damages. So I wouldn't expect this to go beyond just a few days. But we also have this lingering question of what delayed this? How's that juror doing? Does anyone have COVID? But I would expect this should be wrapped up by early next week at the latest.
All right, Paul Reed, Jennifer Rogers, thanks very much.